Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloween Year Round, and today we're talking about Maxxxine, the final chapter in Ty West's X Pearl trilogy. I already did a spoiler-free review on the channel. I'll put a link to that in the description. I am going to majorly get into spoilers from here pretty much from the start, so if you haven't seen the movie or you don't want it spoiled, go watch the other one first and then come back here after you've seen it. So, you've been warned. So we pick up in 1985. Maxxxine is kind of a popular name in adult entertainment. As we saw with X, that was the career she was going for. But she just wants to be a star. She's trying to cross over into mainstream. She's auditioning for this movie called The Puritan 2. Right from the get-go, you kind of see how her working in the adult industry kind of affects the way everyone sees her. Like just how nonchalantly the casting director's like, would you mind removing your top? To creepy men throughout the movie just being like, yeah, you're Maxxxine Minx, aren't you? Even like the production assistant that hands her the notes for the script, he's like, by the way, love your work. Like everyone's a creep around her and can't help it. But no one is a bigger creep than, of course, the killer. This is a Giallo movie. If X was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre style slasher and Pearl was like a Disney princess Lizzie Borden movie, Maxxxine is a giallo, and that's kind of the strongest thing it has going for it. I love its style. I love the seedy underbelly of 1980s Hollywood. I love the saxophone music, as the killer with his black leather gloves and all black outfit is killing people. I love the murder mystery angle. I love just the wide variety of supporting characters you have here. X had an excellent, no pun intended, ensemble cast. I think Maxxxine tops it though, because you've got Kevin Bacon stealing every scene he's in as the private detective that tracks Maxxxine down and is, working for a mysterious employer who's also the killer. He's doing this like weird southern accent that he's just a shady guy that loves being shady. And you can tell Kevin Bacon is having so much fun with the role. He's only in a few scenes, and like his death scene is pretty gnarly and it's probably like my favorite death scene in the whole movie. Yes, it's not the first time I've seen someone, Kick Ass, I think, did a really good, man getting crushed by, I don't know what you call those things, the things that like flatten cars. But I really, really like the way they did it, and I love just every second that Kevin Bacon was in. You've got Giancarlo Esposito, who went from playing Gus Fring to basically he's Saul Goodman here, minus all like the showiness. At the end of the day, though, he's Maxxine's agent and her lawyer. He's someone you want in your corner. Like when she tells him, she's like, "Oh, this guy Kevin Bacon's following me around." He tracks him down and helps kill him. And he's like, "What are agents for?" And it's like, you know what? I got your back, or you got my back, and we could all use a friend like that. Speaking of friends, Maxxine's friends are kind of being killed off one by one, prompting her to kind of reluctantly get in on the investigation. We have two detectives played by Michelle Monaghan and Bobby Carnival, and right from the get-go, like they want her to help, but she's torn between, I don't want to go with the police too much because they might realize nobody knows that she was the sole survivor of the massacre from X, as they're calling it, the Texas porn star massacre. She's afraid that, no one's going to believe that 90-year-old Pearl did all those murders. They think it was the sole survivor, and no one knows that Maxxxine Miller is actually this adult star Maxxxine Minx. Although, if they had Google, they would probably know. So what I liked about the movie, I loved its style. I loved its cast of characters. I like a lot about its plot, but I don't know that its plot fully adds up in the end, and I'll get to that, because we go from Maxxxine auditioning, and then like right away it's like Night Stalker. We're all afraid of the Night Stalker. Spoiler alert, it's not the Night Stalker, it's someone trying to look like the Night Stalker. So like we go full Giallo for like the first act, And then we kind of switch over to a movie about making a movie where we see Maxxine on set. We have Elizabeth Debicki and Lily Collins as the director and actress she's working with on The Puritan 2. And there's a lot of, for someone who loves movies, there's a lot of really cool, like old Hollywood, stuff in there. I love everything from, like, they go to the Bates Motel, they go to the Psycho House, they're on the Universal backlot. There's a whole scene where, Elizabeth Debicki, she's the director of the movie that Maxine's making, pretty much in a very meta way, is explaining to Maxxine the movie she's trying to make. And she's talking about X, because she's like, my idea here is to make a B movie with A ideas. And that's exactly what Ty West was trying to do with that. And I love how in X, RJ was kind of the surrogate for Ty West himself. And in this movie, it's Elizabeth Debicki, where she's making a movie. She's kind of Kubrick-esque in that everyone's like, don't get on her bad side. She can, like, she'll tear you a new one, but it's only because she's so passionate about the movie that she's making. So I like all that stuff, but then I feel like there's not enough of it, because then it's like, okay, now we have to get into the third act where spoilers, plot twist, it was her father all along. Her father is the killer. Maxine's preacher father is the one that tracked her down, hired the investigator, and has been killing all these sinful people, all in an attempt to make a movie about Hollywood and how seedy it is. And it's like, I love those ideas. I don't know that the movie took the time it needed to properly set them up, and here's why. This is our first time really meeting Maxine's father at the villain reveal. I almost feel like it would have worked. Like, he's a twist villain. He's a surprise villain. Although I will say I called it from the moment that Maxxine met with Kevin Bacon's character in the restaurant, and he's like, my employer would like to remain anonymous. I'm like, oh, it's her dad. Because who else would try that hard to track her down? Who else would it be? Everyone from X is dead. So who could it be but Maxine's, insane, extremist, evangelical, fundamentalist preacher father? I almost feel like it would have worked better had we been introduced to him earlier in the movie. Maybe he shows up in Hollywood begging Maxxine, come home, come back to the church, get away from this place and lifestyle of sin. And then you can have the twist reveal that he's the killer at the end. And that makes for a stronger reveal, because, like, oh, we've seen him be like the loving, caring father trying to get his daughter back. And now we see how far he's willing to go to do it. We don't really get time to process it when before this, we've only ever seen him in the random snippets of his infomercials in X, and then the opening of Maxxine. There's like a very brief scene of her as a child and him being like, you're going to be the star of the church. So when you do reveal that her dad is the killer and that he has this cult and that he has, all this, he's making this documentary about Hollywood and it's a snuff movie and all, like, these are all cool ideas, but you're not giving the audience enough time to really kind of absorb and process it before you're already throwing it in their faces. Like, here's a new plot point, and here's everything we're doing with it, and here's the climax of the movie. It felt a bit like in Glass, the final chapter of M. Night Shyamalan's trilogy, where you find out, spoilers for Glass, there's this secret society that's been trying to keep superpowered individuals under wraps and secret, and they've been secretly steering the ship. How many times can I say secret? For decades. And you get to it, and it's like, this is a big reveal that, like, this whole thing existed, and it's kind of a big piece of exposition to dump in the final 10 minutes of the movie. And that's kind of how it felt with Maxxine. I really think that you needed to introduce her father as not the killer earlier in the movie, and then that twist means something. Again, I love the style of this movie. I love its vibes. I love the fact that I'm always going to associate St. Elmo's Fire with it, with Maxxine just, like, slashing up Kevin Bacon's face with her keys as it plays. I just think plot-wise, I mean, this is the final chapter. It's the third installment. X was always meant to be a standalone when Ty West first wrote it. And then it was while they were on pre-production, he and Mia Goth came up with the idea for Pearl, and they kind of did those back to back. And they work really, really well together. Pearl works as an excellent standalone, but also an excellent companion piece to X, because you watch X very differently after seeing Pearl and knowing her backstory. You feel a lot more for her. As Ty West described and as Elizabeth Debicki described in her meta speech in the movie, you know, a killer but not a villain. You know, it feels like Maxxxine was made, and it was made much later, because they're like, well, you gonna do a third one? And Ty West was like, all right, I guess we'll do a third one. What can we do? Let's go to 1980s Hollywood. Again, great idea. A lot of people have been comparing it to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of people are comparing it to Angel, and it has all those vibes to it. But this is a movie that I think the style is greater than the substance. The style is great. It is a fun movie to watch. It definitely, for anyone who complained that Pearl was slow paced, and Pearl is slower paced, it's still my favorite movie of this trilogy because I can see what it's doing. It's building towards something, and everything pays off. Maxxxine, on the other hand, feels like just a collection of ideas. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did Giallo? Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this meta let's make a movie plot? Hey, wouldn't it be cool if the killer was her father and he's part of the secret cult that's trying to make a documentary about City Hollywood, and the documentary is actually just a snuff film of him killing porn stars? Again, all cool ideas. But what are you doing with them? It feels like Ty West, and again, he's a great filmmaker. He's a great writer, great director. I think that he felt pressured, like, I have to do something for the finale. I have to do something that kind of ties it all together. And what better way than have it be Maxxine's dad? But I don't think this is something that I don't think the parts add up to a sum, if that makes sense. So it is a movie that I really enjoy watching. It is fun to watch. It is very entertaining. It is incredibly stylish. It deserves awards for production design and art direction. It does so much with recreating that era in a way that doesn't feel like nostalgia bait. It feels like, I mean, this is the man who made House of the Devil, a movie that actually makes you kind of believe it could have been made in the early 80s. I wish they'd shot this on 16 millimeter film, though. Anyways, I think this is a movie that they did the best they could, and for a third installment to a trilogy, which historically the third installment is always the weakest one, yes, it follows that in that I liked X and Pearl better, but by no means am I saying that Maxxxine is a bad movie. I just don't know that, and I had to watch it twice to kind of like really process it and like really watch that ending again. And it has, again, it's great ideas. You want to do a movie about a crazy preacher trying to, root out the sin in Hollywood, and he has a cult and he's going to be a serial killer. Cool movie. Make that be the whole movie. It just, there's a lot going on, and I don't think enough of it really connects. But as always, I mean, Mia Goth is amazing in it. The entire cast is really great in it. There is not a single weak link in this cast or a single weak performance. It is a very well-made movie. My I just I don't know that its story structure adds up 100% at the end. That's all. But hey, these are just my thoughts. I'd love to know what you thought of it. Feel free to leave your spoiler comment down below. Did you like that reveal that it's her dad? Did you call it? Do you think it would have been better to introduce him earlier? Or would that have just spoiled the ending even more? Like, you introduce your dad early on and there's a killer, and then would 99% of the audience been like, oh, well, of course it's her dad because you introduced him? Let's have that discussion in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. If you don't, you may end up getting targeted by an 80s Giallo killer who's actually a preacher trying to make a snuff documentary movie. And as always, every day is Halloween.